All right, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the letter Epsilon, or as some of you who learn Greek with what's called the Erasmian pronunciation, it's the Upsilon. We're going to go with Epsilon here because that's what it's been for most of its life, actually. And it's a very important letter, and it is a vowel. However, it also can be used as a consonant. So when we put it together with So what we call our alphabet, our Latin alphabet, the Latin characters A, B, C, D, E, or A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on, these letters, as we know them, come from Greek. Now, the characters themselves come from the Phoenicians, but that's in another video. So the Greek letter epsilon actually has four children in the alphabet that we have today. U, and that's pretty obvious to see, V, W, and Y. Well, the U clearly comes from the lowercase epsilon. Now, lowercase letters in Greek, as I've mentioned in a different video, came much centuries after the establishment of the uppercase ones. So anyway, we can see where we get the letter U from, and it's also pretty easy to see where the letter Y comes from. Well, what about the V? The Romans probably didn't like the way the lowercase epsilon looked. It was very hard to chisel it, to chisel that rounded bottom. And they, in many cases, just didn't make a distinction between a U and a V. They just chose to use the V. So if you can imagine a Y and you break off the bottom of it, break off the leg that the Y stands on, and what do you have? You have a V. So that's where that comes from. And then if you had a U sound that was doubled, a double U, what did you do? You did that. And doesn't that look like a W? And even in Spanish today, in some Spanish speaking countries, the W is called the doble U, the double U, or it's called the doble V, the double V. In English, of course, we call it the double U. It doesn't look like two U's put together. It looks like two V's put together. But remember that U, V are originally the same letter. Okay, now we're not going to get into, there's a lot more we could say about this, but just know that epsilon has a rich history, and as you'll note in English, the Y is a vowel and a consonant. And that's because in Greek, the epsilon can be a vowel and a consonant. We list it with the vowels, but we're going to look at its consonant functions starting on the next slide. So now let's look at these three diphthongs, these vowel teams: alpha and epsilon, 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 eta, epsilon. When these three letters, the alpha, the epsilon, and the eta, are paired with the epsilon, they keep their original sound. So alpha will still be a, epsilon will still be e, eta will still be e. However, the epsilon is pronounced either as a f, a fi, or a v, vita. If these vowel pairs precede a vowel, or if they precede the letters vita, gamma, delta, zeta, lambda, mi, ni, rho, then the epsilon sounds like a v, and we're going to see examples of this in a moment. So anytime you've got a vowel or any of these consonants, your epsilon is going to have a v, v, v sound. If these vowel pairs precede the letters kappa, pi, taf, chi, fi, theta, sigma, xi, and psi, then the epsilon sounds like a phi. Now, you don't have to memorize these because eventually, the more you practice speaking, the more you're going to realize that it's just easier to pronounce it one way than the other. Okay, there are technical reasons for all of these, but for now, this is just a basic introduction to the rules. Now, if you look at the bottom line, the last three Greek consonants, sigma, xi, and psi, these are pretty easy to remember because they are actually all S sounds. You have the sigma, s, and the xi, x, and the psi, ps. And in fact, if we were to go way back into the early days of Greek using these letters, this set of letters, xi wasn't even there. It was just written as a p sigma. I'm sorry, as a kappa sigma, and the psi was actually represented by the two letters p and sigma. So those last two, the xi and the psi, came along later. All right, so we've established that alpha, epsilon, and eta combined with the epsilon could make a f or a v sound. Now let's look at some specific examples. First, let's look at alpha epsilon. So I'll read the Greek on the left. Aftos, afti, αυτό, αυτοκίνητο, καυτερό, ναύτης. All of those have that F sound, okay? And we're just taking our lower lip and putting it up against our upper row of teeth. It's called an unvoiced dental fricative. F, f, f. Okay? It would be difficult to make those with a V sound. Avtos doesn't really roll the way we would like it to, and it would be difficult to say it quickly. On the right side, where you see those green ones, now we have the V, the Vita sound. So we've got Tavros, Stavros, Avli, Avgo, Avrio, Pavo. Okay, and that's called a voiced dental fricative. That's our V, V, V sound. Okay, so whether we use the F or the V sound, and F and V are actually related. Okay, whether we use the F or V sound depends on what letter comes after the epsilon. This is it for alpha epsilon. Let's look at epsilon epsilon. The rule is the same here. Ευκαμπτός, flexible. Ευτυχώς, ευχή, προσευχή. Εύκολο, ευθύνη. Okay, so we've got that F sound, that F sound on the left side. On the right side, we have our V again. Ευλογία, ευγενικός, χορεύω, μαγειρεύω, μαντεύω, πιστεύω. Now we kind of catch a break here because epsilon epsilon as a prefix is super common, and there are thousands of words in Greek that use this. Okay, so if you're ever unsure of how to spell a word, should it be epsilon epsilon or epsilon phi? Well, we can just remember this prefix and that'll help us spell. And then if you look at the last four words on the right side, chorevo, magirevo, mandevo, pistevo, there are probably thousands of evo verbs in Greek as well. So it's not always going to be the case. There are some that'll use a vita, and sometimes we just learn by seeing the word. We learn by reading and by practicing. Just like in English, there are plenty of homophones. How do we learn to distinguish? We learn by reading and writing and practicing. Okay, so that takes care of epsilon, epsilon. And now we come up to this one here. This is one that you rarely see. Um, it's almost never used in modern Greek unless it's a formal setting. You might see a word like ivrica, which may not look familiar to most modern Greek speakers. However, there is evrika, which should look more familiar, and it might even sound familiar even to non-Greek speakers, because evrika is where we get eureka. which means I found it. Okay? So it's true that epsilon epsilon words come into English with the EU sound, like Europe and eulogy and euphemism. Okay? These are important in the study of Greek, but they also help us understand the etymology of English words. Telos.